Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, September 17, 2019, in the Westfield High School Cafeteria B, 550 Dorian Road, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the Board and to transact any other business to come properly before the Board. The Board will immediately move into private session to discuss legal matters rendered confidential by state and federal law. The public portion of the meeting will begin at 7:30 p.m. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, September 12, 2019, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and meeting of this meeting. Dana, can we do a roll call?
Michael Beelan.
Here.
Ed Diamond.
Here.
Brendan Galligan.
Here.
Robert Garrison.
Here.
Brian Morrissey.
Here.
Gretchen Oley. Here. Tara Porto.
Here.
Peggy Oster.
Here.
Amy Avery.
Here.
I'd like the Board to approve the following resolution. Resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purpose of discussing matters rendered confidential by state and federal law, legal matters, and be it further resolved that any discussion held by the Board which need not remain confidential, and the results of the discussion will be made public as soon as practical. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kent? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're in private session.
Let me just pull my
7 p.m. for a private session of the Board, so we're back into public session at this point in time. So I'd like to start with the flag salute. Brendan.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Brendan. We're going to start with some announcements. I'm going to move to the podium for the first one. I was looking to see if they were here. Are they here? On behalf of the entire Board of Education, it is my pleasure to recognize 4 Westfield High School students who are National Merit Scholarship semifinalists for 2020. This designation is a result of a competition by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation, which uses the preliminary SAT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, to screen more than 1.5 million juniors in about 21,000 high schools. Less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors qualify as National Merit semifinalists. The program honors students who show exceptional academic ability and potential for success in rigorous college studies. The following 4 Westfield High School seniors are among the highest scoring entrants and are eligible to continue in the competition for a National Merit Scholarship. When I call your name, please come to the podium to accept a certificate of recognition. And if you would stay up here with me so that we can have a picture and keep it in our archives. First, Ian Gerlin. Aiden Kilborn. Connie Liu. And Julia Tompkins. This is truly an accomplishment you should be very proud of, and I wish you the best as you go further into the full National Merit Scholarship Program. Thank you.
Congratulations, Teresa.
Congratulations.
Okay, we'll go through our next announcements. Rob, do you have any announcements this evening?
I do. I have one. Congratulations to the following Westfield High School students who achieved perfect scores on ACT and/or SAT subject areas in June. June SAT, Math 2, Matthew Arndt, Ryan Billings, Grace Endy, Samuel Urton, Zachary Fisher, Thomas Lepicki, Mira Mehta, Henry Meiselman, Spencer Rothfleisch, hopefully I didn't butcher that name too badly, Alan Salovi, Max Tennant, Savaji Turamella. Biology M, Abby Zidell. Chemistry, Samuel Ertman, Aidan Kilborn. Physics, Kurt Hugh. June ACT, Alexis Hammer in English, Catherine Martinson, Science, STEM in English, Elisa St. Davis, English, and Tara Sullivan, Science. Congratulations.
Tara?
Yes, I have two. Congratulations to the following Westfield High School students who also achieved perfect scores in ACT and/or SAT subject areas in July and August. Clea DeMonk, Math and Reading, Alexis Hammer, Math, Brad Hornbeck, Math, and for August, all in Math, Grace Endy, Savaji Turamella, and Kylie Zhao. The Parent-Teacher Council is the umbrella organization for all 10 of the Westfield Public School District PTOs. General meetings are held once a month, and all parents are welcome and encouraged to attend. At these monthly meetings, the PTO presidents meet with the PTC board, the superintendent, and a member of the Board of Education. The first meeting of the PTC will be held on Wednesday, September 25th at 10:15 a.m. at 302 Elm Street. A full meeting schedule can be found on the district website at www.westfieldnjk12.org under the Family Resources tab.
Thank you. Michael?
The Special Education Committee of the Parent Teachers Council, in partnership with the district's Department of Special Services, will hold an introductory discussion for parents on October 2nd at Edison Intermediate School. Assistant Superintendent Dr. Michael Weissman, along with members of the Child Study Team, will provide updates on the latest developments and events that are important to the special education community. Thank you.
Brendan?
A representative of the Rutgers Cooperative Extension will present a backyard composting workshop on Thursday, October 3rd at 7 p.m. in the Municipal Building Community Room, 425 East Broad Street, hosted by the Westfield Green Team. Registration for this free event is via the Westfield Recreation Department at 908-789-4086. All participants will be entered into a raffle to win a free backyard compost bin.
Thank you. Brian?
Westfield High School's High's Eye received a gold medal for the 2018-2019 year from the Columbia Scholastic Press Association, which provided an in-depth critique of hundreds of student newspapers across the U.S. and awarded gold, silver, and bronze medals based on a numeric score on essentials, verbal, and visual categories. Congratulations to our student journalists and advisors, Sean McDonald and Gail O'Connor, on this prestigious recognition. Also, congratulations to freshman field hockey coach Corinne Varley, who celebrated her 100th win with a victory over Randolph on September the 9th.
Ken?
Thank you. Calling all middle and high school artists. You're invited to create a Charles Addams-inspired cartoon for Adams Fest this fall. All drawings must be no larger than 11 by 8 and must include name, school, grade, email, and phone number on the back. Mail or drop off in person to Adams Cartoon Contest, care of Department of Recreation, Town of Westfield, 425 East Broad Street in Westfield. The top 25 cartoons will be featured alongside original Charles Adams net artwork at the James Ward Mansion from October 15th through the 23rd. The deadline to submit cartoons is Friday, September 27th. For a complete list of contest rules, along with information on where to submit the artwork, visit www.adamsfest.com. And secondly, established in 1957, the PTC Scholarship Fund benefits graduating Westfield High School seniors who demonstrate financial need, academic perseverance, and community involvement. For information on how to contribute to the 2020 PTC Scholarship Fund, look for PTO initiatives in the Community Flyers section of the district website. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Gretchen?
Yeah, I have an announcement to piggyback on Peggy's earlier announcement. So 20 Westfield High School students have been recognized for their exceptional academic promise as commended students in the 2020 National Merit Scholarship Competition. They are Matthew Arndt, Logan Calder, Valerie Chang, Clea DeMunchik, Eric Elises, Mark Folletta, Spencer Feinstein, Zachary Fisher, Daniel Fox, Julia Horn, Kurt Hugh, Grace Hutchinson, Jeremy Kronheimer, Thomas Lupicki, Stephen Park, Sandrine Perez, Jonathan Sherman, Elijah So, Max Tennant, and McLean Zeller. Congratulations to all of those amazing students. And a second announcement that an information session will be held on Wednesday, September 25th for parents and students interested in learning more about Odyssey of the Mind, which is an international creative problem-solving competition for students. The information session, which will be held at Edison Intermediate School, will begin at 7 p.m. If you have any questions prior to the session, please email Donna Kenny at, and I'm just going to spell it out, DonnaKenny @gmail.com. Thanks.
Thank you. Amy?
Yep, I have two. Westfield High School juniors Aishik Palit and Zaria Katz have been accepted into the American Choral Directors Association All-Eastern Choir. They will attend a conference and perform with the All-Eastern Choir in Rochester, New York next March. Congratulations to Aishik and Zaria on this tremendous achievement. And then also, Peggy's favorite, Westfield Public Schools will be closed on Monday, September 30th and Tuesday, October 1st in observance of Rosh Hashanah, and on Wednesday, October 9th in observance of Yom Kippur. Schools will also be closed on Monday, October 14th for Columbus Day.
Lots of holidays, lots of happy children. I'd like to note that our next meeting for the Westfield Board of Education will be held on Tuesday, October 15th at 7:30 p.m. back at 302 Elm Street. The complete agenda will be available on Friday, October 11th on the board section of the district website. Dr. Dolan, do you have something?
I do.
So I have an update on the opening of school. On September 5th, we were happy to welcome over 6,200 students, ranging in age from our preschoolers up to our class of 2020. Our buildings were in good shape because of the hard work of our custodians and maintenance workers, and we thank them for their work throughout the summer. We're very pleased to have Maria Svendis in place as the new principal of Westfield High School. She started in this position as of August 1 and was able to work with her team to prepare for the school year. And Principal Brian Geckman also took over his new role during the month prior to the start of school so that he could prepare for the students entering Roosevelt Intermediate School. So on the first day of school is one of my favorite days of the year because I'm lucky enough I get to walk through the halls of all the schools. And it's a shame, everyone can't obviously, but it's a shame you can't because it's a magical moment, honestly. It's a moment where minutes after students have said goodbye to their parents and parents are still outside, all of a sudden, the teachers are so organized, the students are learning within minutes, and you'd walk through the school and you'd think that school had been in session for months. It's absolutely incredible. They get right to work, and that's exactly what happened on the first day of school in all of our schools. Let's see. We also began the new school year with new procedures and protocols for security. These were presented in detail at the last meeting of the Board of Education. All parents and staff members then received an email from me detailing these new procedures. They also received a message from the principal of their school with information specific to their building. This information was also included in the back-to-school video that was sent to all parents and staff. The process for constructing the new procedures began in June. So we first worked with the Westfield Police Department and our security consultants to determine areas where we had to improve our security. We used these results of the review, and throughout the summer, principals, assistant principals, and supervisors worked with Dana Sullivan and myself. As you have time over the coming days, I would ask you to thank the principals, assistant principals, and supervisors for their work during June, July, and August. When they entered the field of education, they did not project that they would have to become experts in security. And to be honest, as we worked over the summer, we struggled. We struggled to find a reasoned approach to an unreasonable reality. The culture of our schools embraces the community, and our culture is built on trust. So do we stop allowing community groups or athletic associations from using our facilities after school hours? It would certainly make life easier, but it would change our culture dramatically. So we worked and worked to find a balance. And the next hurdle was the actual implementation of the new procedures. All secretaries received training over the summer and were encouraged to challenge the new procedures and to ask as many questions as they could come up with. And I want to give a shout out to our secretaries. They've always been in charge of allowing access into the building, and they understand the importance of security, and they have been doing an exemplary job in this area. From the viewpoint of the principals, the support and understanding of the parents in the community has been remarkable. Our busy parents made the time to read the information that has been distributed, and they understood the need for the changes. They are leaving forgotten items in the boxes outside each building. They are making appointments at least 24 hours in advance, as requested. And they arrive at school ready to display their identification. These changes have been a benefit to the schools and to the secretaries, who now have fewer interruptions throughout the school day. We, of course, realize that security is an ongoing challenge, and we will continue to adapt and improve as we go forward. Clearly, all staff share responsibility regarding the safety of our students, and all staff understand this. When I spoke with all the teachers, child study team members, counselors, etc., on the day after Labor Day, I focused on their responsibilities. And they are responsible on two different fronts. Yes, things like making sure doors remain locked, that's very important. But we also need them to utilize the training that they have received regarding knowing the signs to look for in individuals who might be in crisis. Our teachers are often the ones who can identify students or any member of our school community who might be struggling in some way. And the teachers know it's their responsibility to notify their supervisor of any of these concerns. We then rely on our counselors and psychologists as a first step to investigate and determine what supports or next steps are necessary. Throughout all of our work regarding security, we are fortunate to have the Westfield Police Department as our partner. They are the experts regarding security, and we appreciate their ongoing work with us. Chief Badaloro and the members of this department are responsive and focused on the safety of our students. I have asked Chief Badaloro to speak tonight, and I'd like him to talk about some of the ways where his department continues to work with the Westfield schools. Chief Badaloro.
Good evening. I would like to thank Superintendent Dr. Margaret Dolan and Business Administrator Dana Sullivan for the invitation to attend tonight's meeting of the Board of Education. I am a Westfielder. I attended Westfield Public Schools and graduated from Westfield High School. I care very deeply about this town and its people. I'm tremendously honored to serve as Westfield's police chief. I want you to know that I take my duties and responsibilities very seriously, and the safety and security of your children is one of my greatest concerns. I welcome the opportunity to be here tonight to hear from you, the members of the Westfield community, about your concerns. Last June, as you know, we experienced a scare at Tamaqua School. the Westfield Police Department arrested an individual seated in a parked vehicle directly opposite the school's main entrance, who was armed with a .45 caliber handgun, fully loaded with hollow point bullets. As I have stated before, the explicit purpose of this subject's presence at Tamaqua School may never be known for sure, but I think we can all infer the worst was entirely possible. For many of you, this should have been an eye-opening event. It should remind you that the safety and security of our children is not a given, and it should never be taken for granted. It should tell you that sometimes our greatest threats are not the unknown, but rather the known. Since that June incident, the Westfield Police Department has met several times with the administration of the Westfield Public Schools to include its professional security consultants. The incident that occurred at Tamaqua School was discussed in great detail. We talked about what was done right, what was done wrong, and what could have been done better. Based on a detailed review of that incident, a number of new security measures were recommended by the Westfield Police Department and have been enacted by the Westfield Public Schools. In law enforcement, we operate under the basic premise that anything can happen anywhere at any given time. We prepare for that, and we respond like that. The officers who responded to the Tamaqua School incident last June did so, and their response was near flawless. Their actions, their tactics, their composure were textbook perfect. As their chief, I could not have asked for anything more. Many times, people will question the police, or perhaps more correctly stated, they will complain about why officers did certain things and how and when they did them. Perhaps now you can understand why. All it takes is just a little complacency. And well, things could have gone differently, much differently. And the end results, well, they could have been different as well, much different. Our police officers performed admirably last June. And what we need now is for you, the parents of our children, to perform similarly, to follow these new security measures, knowing full well that the consequences could be different, much different, if you fail to do so, no matter how routine or monotonous they may become. The incident at Tamaqua School was a wake-up call that complacency cannot and should not be accepted. I have no doubt in my mind when I tell you this. I firmly believe that the safest place for our children is and always has been in school. Yes, our children are safest when they are in school, under the watchful eyes of their teachers and other school staff, the aides, the secretaries, and the custodians. It is these people who care for your children as if they were their own. I have 3 school-aged children who attend Cranford Public Schools, and I know that I am most comfortable about their safety and security when they are in school. I am certain that our children will be even safer with the implementation of these new security measures if our staff and you parents follow them with the same basic premise, that anything can happen anywhere at any time. I want you to know that even prior to the Tamaqua School incident, school security was one of my foremost concerns. Police officers were not only covering up to 15 school posts each morning and each afternoon in the absence of available crossing guards, but they were also making unannounced security checks of every public elementary school twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Our officers traversed each floor of every school, as well as completed an exterior inspection of its perimeter and grounds each day, every day, twice a day. These security checks often took more than an hour, as our officers often engaged staff and students, oftentimes being invited to participate in school activities. This was all in addition to having 3 full-time school resource officers, assigned 1 each to the high school and 2 intermediate schools. Based on what I know, I am satisfied that what occurred at Tamaqua School last June was not a random incident. But while we still must remain ever vigilant, we also cannot let one incident otherwise ruin what should be some of the most precious, innocent, and enjoyable years of our children's lives. We must maintain a school environment that encourages learning and growth and promotes values such as optimism, trust, and respect for others. In Westfield today, the persistent presence of police officers in schools has become the norm. And I promise you this, it shall remain so for as long as I am Chief of Police. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Dr. Dolan for summarizing the first day of school for all of us and how it went and the procedures that are in place and keeping us abreast of how they're going and so forth. And I really want to thank you, Chief Badalora, for coming out and giving us your support and letting us know how we are interacting with the police department, the schools, the students, and so forth. And I look, along with Dr. Dolan and the whole staff, with working well with you going into the future, every day, every school year, and I hope for many years, so don't go anywhere. So, I'm going to, right now we would go in to recognize the public for agenda items only. At this time, I'm going to suggest that we will recognize the public for all questions and comments because Chief Badalora and Dr. Dolan have both spoken. But before we get started, I just wanted to reiterate something, and a feeling that I have, that it is important to keep in mind that there are many opinions in the Westfield community about the best approach to safety and security in our schools. But one thing that all voices have in common is that we come from a place of caring for our children and their safety, whether or not they're first graders or they're 12th graders. We do care about all of them. So at this time, I'm going to open up the podium for everybody or for anybody who would like to come forward with comments, ideas. But this evening, which is our normal protocol at this time, we board members are here to listen. We won't be entering into dialogue or anything. We are here to listen. We're here to hear your comments, your concerns, your ideas. And we hear you and we're listening. There is a large crowd here tonight. I don't want to put a time limit on how long people can speak, but please keep in mind that there may be a lot of people who would like to speak this evening. So if you could keep your comments to between 3 or 4 minutes, that would be great. I don't want to stop anybody in the middle of their comments, but just remember there's people behind you that would also like to speak. Also, we're going to ask that you come to the podium once. We want to hear what you have to say, but we really would like you to come to the podium once. We'll listen, and we are listening to what you have to say, and we have to make some hard decisions. Would we like every type of security that could possibly be out there? Sure. As I said, utmost to us is the safety and security of the students. But we have to make educated decisions based off of information we get from the chief, from our security consultants, to put in place what we can in our district to make our school safe. So in listening to you, we'll take that back again, and we will discuss it. So if you would like to come to the podium, please, you must state your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Evan Marks. I'm from 724 Norman Place. And I really wanted to I have something written down, but I just wanted to say it's nice to come here and see how open everybody is to listening to us. I do have a lot of trust in everything that you're doing, but as parents, we have what we see and what we hear, and we're getting piecemeal, and as parents, it's really hard. We have to get a babysitter to even be here tonight. So I just wanted to read this, and a lot of it is really appreciation. I wanted to thank the members of the Board of Education for the hard work they do on a daily basis. I'm sure it's no easy task to be responsible for the education and the lives of our children in Westfield's 10 schools. My daughter attends Tamaqua Elementary. She has 2 close friends that were in the school that day, and I think that they felt, the parents felt, and we felt that it really changed them over the summer. It was hard to explain what happened. I don't think we need to recap what happened. There's no blame on anybody. I appreciate how the local police department did their job amazingly. It was just, it could have gone so the other way. We dodged a bullet, and I kind of feel like we got really lucky, and thank God for that. You know, the news is filled with sad stories every day. Today, if you read the news, you're gonna see another gun story in another school every single day. Today's was that there was a girl that wants to go shoot 400 of her old classmates in Oklahoma. Tomorrow it's gonna be something else. So obviously this is something that's happening in our country, and we have to figure out the best ways to approach it. We kind of live in a bubble in Westfield, and it's a great town, lots of success stories, and for decades families have been moving here. My wife grew up in Westfield, I grew up in Cranford. We know it as well as anybody. I don't particularly want metal detectors in Westfield. I'm conflicted on having SRO officers there with guns. I do, though, think there is a lot of things that we can do to improve, and I know that you guys are working on it. I think as parents, we felt a little frustration at the end of the last week of the year, going through the summer and not really hearing a lot of communication because you were all working on your plans, and we didn't really know, and you know, your message came like 2 days before the school started, and we were happy to read it, but we didn't really know what had happened and changed over the summer. It felt like a little frustration on our part that we didn't know what was happening throughout the whole summer. Obviously you were working on it, and we knew you were, but it's hard to keep updated with the parents over that course of the summer and throughout the school year. And so I think that you know, a lot of my friends over here are gonna have some more specifics as to ideas and things that you've talked about before, but I think that keeping the parents involved more somehow, because we're there every day at the school, especially for the little kids. We're there every day picking up our children, seeing probably the gaps, and you know, as the board members, you're walking through every once a week, once every other couple of days, and you're talking to the teachers, but you might not be seeing the same things that we're seeing or hearing our worries the same. So I hope that you can work with us, and I don't know exactly what your plan is for the rest of the school year, but I think that a subcommittee with some parents, or reaching out to parents, or getting more feedback and polling as to what exactly the parents want would be helpful. So thank you.
I'm Faye Bowie, 9 Stoneleigh Park. I just want to talk about a policy for after school. You made a policy for school. The incident happened after school. There was not an administrator in the building. And I think that there are a lot of policies that can be made that aren't going to cost thousands of dollars. They're just policies that need to take place. So if we are parents and we're volunteering in the school, it's left up to us as volunteers who have zero training in charge of multiple children. There could clearly be a gunman who comes, or, you know, any emergency situation. We're not trained to deal with it, and I'm not suggesting that you train me in how to do a lockdown, but I am suggesting that there is somebody in the office who has access to the police who could say, we are in an emergency situation and this is what you need to do. And I think that's part of the policy that you don't have, that I spoke about when I spoke at the meeting in June, because this happened after school. There's a lot of activity happening after school. And while I might shut the door and my co-leader might shut the door, that's not to say that everybody's going to shut the door, that everybody's going to make sure the door is locked, that there's any way to communicate with the people who are in charge of the safety of numerous children. And at Tamaqua, specifically the variety show, there are children in the hallways, in the cafeteria, in classrooms upstairs, downstairs, outside. The doors are open. The kids need to go to the bathroom. There's nothing protecting any of the children on, it's after school, but it's school time and school property. And we need to figure out at what time is that building shut down because there's nobody there to protect the kids. And is the police going to do some sort of security sweep so we can say, okay, Tamaqua's checked, you're good, you're closed, you're safe for the morning. It can't fall on the moms who are volunteering or the custodians who are there till 9 o'clock. There has to be some sort of protocol for after school activities if the schools are open to the community. And I'm begging you to come up with a policy that protects the kids when they are there for school events in a real way. Otherwise, this exact same thing could happen because it did happen after school. I'm not doubting that you came up with a policy in the best of your ability in the time that we had between that incident and school starting during the day. But there's the scariest part of what Tamaqua's parents think about happened between the hours of 3 and 4 o'clock. So I think there's ways to figure it out so that the school closes at a specific time, but there is somebody in command in that office who can communicate with the people in the building and communicate with the police, or else they're not any more safer now than they were in June because this did happen after school. So if you could please consider that, I think that would make a lot of very uncomfortable parents feel a little bit safer with their children and the after-school activities happening at the schools.
Colin Sumner, 429 First Street. A lot of talk about parents and everyone else in the school district, and although that's understandable, no one's really talking to students here. And as a student here, and I can assure everyone in the crowd tonight, Westfield Public Schools has made a lot of improvements to the building and really upgraded it. I've seen it and I appreciated all the new doors and all the new systems and protocols you've put in place. But no one is talking to the students. No one is training the students. If we're training teachers on what to do during a lockdown, why aren't we giving students the same training? If we're training an SRO and paying an SRO between the district and the police force of Westfield, and they're getting special training, why aren't students receiving similar training? And now I understand it would be hard to do training for everyone, but if you're training so many people to protect everyone else, why aren't we just training everyone else at this point? On top of that, I think it's also worth investigating a clearer report on how much crime is actually going on at Westfield Public Schools. I think it's important to recognize that we do have someone in this school with a gun, and although they're being safe and protected, their office is all the way on the second floor in the high school. I don't know where it is in the other schools, but that's not close to the main door. If people are walking around with a gun in the school, they need to be charged and tasked with the duty of protecting people. The SRO around the school is a very nice guy. He's made great improvements with the students, and everyone's been able to connect and calm down. But there still is really a fear inside of this school, that I feel at least, and I'm sure other students definitely feel it too, about being worried, about not even a school shooting at this point, but just the sound of anything, or like the doors locked. It's kind of creepy at this point. You'll find a door locked somewhere, you won't be able to get in. What's going on? Anyway, thank you for all you're doing. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, Kim McKee, 925 Willow Grove Road. I have a daughter at Tamaqua and 2 little ones that are coming up that will also be in the public schools. I can tell you, the Tamaqua incident to me was an eye-opener. I trusted that I was in a great town. I pay a lot of money in taxes. It's a great district, and I trusted that everything was being done right and state of the art. It's clear that we got lucky at Tamaulipas. Maybe something was going to happen, maybe it wasn't. Like you said, we'll never really know. But I know you said that we've been focusing on safety and security for years, and nothing is new. But clearly we're doing things different as of this year. So that means what was being done last year probably wasn't sufficient. And so I know we're working with the board, I know we're working with the chief, the police department. We are, as parents, trying to get educated. It feels like there's a lack of transparency. To try to get information is actually very difficult. I think that's probably by design, because maybe you don't want the community to know every little detail about your security plans. That makes perfect sense. But there's other towns like Cranford, Mountainside, and they're doing parent education sessions. They're bringing in Dr. Gambino. He's educating the parents. He's educating the community. And I think that's helping. I guess the other thing for me is I do trust that everyone's got the best interests of the kids at heart, but this sometimes becomes very political. And I think the kids suffer when it becomes political, and that seems unacceptable. So I think we should have more checks and balances in place. Like other schools are bringing in the Office of Emergency Management and saying, do an audit, a full audit of our schools, and tell us what's good, bad, or indifferent, make recommendations. I know we're using Stonegate, that's fine, we pay Stonegate. I don't think it hurts to bring in another set of eyes and ears. Bring in Dr. Gambino. We heard other schools are bringing in Gambino and doing an entire audit of the whole school district. What are we afraid of? That they're going to tell us something? I mean, at the end of the day, you get to make the decision. The community gets to make the decision, but I don't think it hurts. It's like checks and balances, in my view. And then I was a little disappointed. We had thought tonight we were going to discuss the vestibules and the cost of it and the double doors and when that was coming. I guess it was taken off the agenda. So we're hopeful that we'll get more information on that. But again, we hear a lot, safety is our top priority, but then we hear we need to balance it and things cost money. So at the end of the day, I'm a realist, and I think that a lot of this probably has to do with money, but it also has to do with politics, and I think we're trying to balance everything, and I think that double doors at a minimum, other schools are doing it. I don't know, we're trying to get smart, but I don't know, did Cranford do a referendum to get double doors? Did Mountainside? So we're gonna try to continue to get educated. I think it would be helpful if we can have a community meeting where we can educate the parents, the public a little more. And then my final comment, lost my train of thought. Oh, my final comment was, there is a lot of information out there, and we're trying to sort through it, and I don't have all the answers, but the Homeland Security put out the New Jersey School Security Task Force report and recommendations in July of 2015, and that, in this report, recommends SROs at every single school. It also recommends not voting inside the schools. So I have a hard time, reconciling that. So where do we stand on that? I'm sure you're getting a lot of opinions, or maybe you're just getting the opinion from Stonegate. I don't know, but I think the more, the better, and I'd appreciate, again, more education, and then just more transparency and more checks and balances, reaching out to more experts to try to figure out how we can make our schools safer. Thanks.
Hi, Amy Heller. I live in Clark. I have nieces and nephews that are in the school system, in the Westfield Public School System. Two of them one is in Tamaulipas, one is in Jefferson, and three of them are on their way into the elementary schools. I want to personally thank Colin, who spoke. I think the voice of the student is very important, and I think by the time that you're in high school, you're able to articulate that you're scared. When you're 5 or 6 or 7, you need somebody else to speak for you. And I think that there are a lot of parents here, and I know that there are a lot of parents in the community that want to be the voice for those children. I put my niece to bed the other night. She asked for a scary story. She's 6. And her 10-year-old sister was at the window and said, well, you should talk about the lockdowns, right? They feel it. It's very real to them. So we're scared, right? And that's why we're here. We started the Concerned Parents and Caregivers group on Facebook, which I know that there are people here that are involved with it, and there are people here that have various opinions about it, out of a concern as parents and caregivers for children in Westfield. That's simply it. We're not a political group. We don't have an agenda that's political. We're not pro-gun by any stretch of the imagination, and I am very happy to have that conversation with anybody that would like to have it after this, because we've been called that. What we are is pro-safety, and we have 4 pillars that we'd like to continue the discussion about with the community and with the board. And those include, to Kim's point, number 1, voting in the school. Homeland Security has recommended that we don't have the schools open on voting days. We'd like to see what can be done to at least close them for the major election. SROs in the elementary schools. We have them in the high school. We have them in the middle schools. We'd like to see a school resource officer in each of the elementary schools. There are neighboring towns that are doing this in the elementary schools. The programs that support this are very child-friendly. There's ice cream socials. There's SRO trading cards. The kids love them. Let's start having a conversation about, do they really bring extra anxiety into the schools, or are they a helpful way to introduce safety and support to a community of children who are already frightened? External improvements continued outside of the schools. We know that the conversation about the vestibules is on the docket. We don't, to Kim's point, understand why it would require a referendum to discuss. Other towns are doing it. Clark broke ground on their vestibule project within the last week. We know that they're at other places in the area. We just want to understand where that conversation is and what needs to happen to move it forward. And then an electronic visitor management system. Let's get pictures of who's coming into the schools. Let's get a better understanding of why they're there. Let's be able to, if God forbid there is a problem, know who's in the school, why they're there, etc. They're not expensive. They're not a cure-all, right? But they're another very easy, simple implementation that other schools in the area are using and using successfully. Again, this is not political to us. This is 100% about keeping the children that we love safe, and we welcome a continued conversation with the parents of Westfield. Thanks.
Alicia Grippy-Virag, 220 Jefferson. Start off, as I always start off, thank you for everyone who's making safety and security a priority. I appreciate all the hard work you do. Special shout out to Chief. A few times I walked my children to school during the first 2 weeks, and there's been a police officer on the corner, walking around, saying good morning to people. I feel lighter. My children feel lighter. It would be wonderful if we could have that every day. Again, during the day, I live close to the school. I'm in and out. I see a police officer. It makes me feel better. I really just don't understand, in a town as great as this, with all of you dedicated people, we cannot deliver this to our children. Thank you.
I am Marcy Bandelli, 209 Tuttle Parkway, Westfield. Thank you all for doing what you're doing on a volunteer basis. I really appreciate it. So I am a parent of 3 children. 2 are in college but went through the Westfield school system. I have a 8th grader at Roosevelt. And without getting too political, although politics runs through my blood, I feel just as terrified as everybody else. We have a gun problem in this country. We're not really safe anywhere, but the most important thing is to keep our children safe. After Sandy Hook, I was terrified too. I had a 1st grader at the time, and I took a different route. I started showing up at Congressman's office and kind of screaming my head off at them, and finally got rid of him because they weren't listening to their constituents, right? So as people know here, I was the co-founder of Westfield 2020, which is an advocacy group. And gun safety has always been something that was really important to me. And I've done so much research on this issue. And when I heard what the topic was going to be tonight, I did even more research. And the big question is, do we want more guns in our schools? I say no. I don't want more guns anywhere. I am particularly happy that we have SROs in the middle schools and the high school. And I think it's going to be a board decision whether or not you bring them into the elementary schools. I think they could be really good to assess whether or not a child's in trouble. As we know, a lot of school shootings are either former students or students at the schools. So it's a really good idea, and that's certainly going to be something that's up to you. I think an alert system in each school that runs directly to the Westfield Police Department would be a really good idea. We've had trials and practice drills. They show a 2.5-minute response time for current policy execution. So that's something you guys may want to consider. I think that, in the years after Sandy Hook, our school system has really evolved into focusing on safety for our kids, especially after all the school shootings that have happened. And I'm really very pleased with how the town has responded. I'm sure there's more we can do. One of the things I recommended about 1.5 years ago was working with the Sandy Hook Promise staff. I think they've done a lot of research on how to protect our children. They certainly had the worst of it in this country. And so I'm recommending that again. I think it would be a good idea to reach out to them. And we actually have somebody that would be willing to train teachers and train staff if anybody's interested in that. But I think they really know what they're doing, and they've really lived the horrors that we're all afraid of. They focus on say something, or see something, say something, just like our SROs do, but maybe they get a little bit more in the weeds. So we're really, I'd really like to see that happen as well. And although I am no expert in school security by any means, I asked my 13-year-old how she feels about having armed security in the schools. And she's like, Mom, I just don't like to see the guns. And I know that we are in a reality where we have more guns in this country than people. And our government isn't helping us with this issue, so we're really desperate. We're desperate parents and we're scared parents. But I'm not quite sure guns is the answer, or more guns is the answer. So I think it could further traumatize children. They're already being traumatized by the drills. And so that's all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Megan Brennan, 862 Rahway Avenue. I have 2 kids at Tamaulipas. I spoke at the August 27th meeting, and I met privately with Dr. Dolan and Mrs. Sullivan, and I appreciated the conversation that we had. I do believe that what Mrs. Oster said, that we all really are looking for the best solutions for our kids. I have kids who are kind of anxious, one of whom cries during lockdown drills every time. Full disclosure, am a member of Westfield 2020 and one of the moderators of the CPC group. I'm not going to bring my politics into this because I don't really think this is a political issue. I have a very strong opinion about guns and I don't like them, but I think that police officers should have guns, and I think that police officers should be our children's friend. So Cranford, where Chief Battlearo's kids are, where I grew up, has substations in every school, so that police officers can go to these substations instead of going back to the precinct. They can go and they can write their reports in the schools. So they also have trading cards for the police officers. The kids get excited to be able to meet another police officer, trade cards with that, get that card from that police officer. That's not a scary situation for these kids. I told Dr. Dolan and Mrs. Sullivan this. I took my kids to Point Pleasant Boardwalk this past weekend, and just in the little small area where all the rides are, there were 6 security guards, armed security guards, walking around, white shirts, security all over them, guns on their belts, and my children did not notice them. 6 of these men walking around in a small area. Now, granted, there were rides also, but I think that there are things that have become normal to our children, and police officers carrying guns, I don't know who would say a police officer shouldn't carry a gun. I think only police officers and military personnel should be carrying guns. That's my personal opinion. But I don't see how a trained police officer, which is what a school resource officer is, in the school, is going to be at all detrimental to these kids. I know, I dropped my kids off on Friday. Chief Battlearo was sitting in the parking lot watching drop-off. Later on in the day, I just talked to Mr. Dulks, the principal of Tamaulipas, briefly, and I said that's really great. And he's like, this happens constantly. The police are constantly around, and I echo what Alicia said, that that's what we need. We don't need our kids to be scared. My kid's not scared when she sees a police officer, and I don't think that she should be. She's scared with a lockdown drill. I get that. It's necessary. As far as the oversight, having groups come in, I am all for having everybody come in. Let Sandy Hook Promise come in. Let the OEM come in. Let Homeland Security come in. Let's just get a really clear picture of how this thing is being viewed. That's what the CPC is trying to do. We're trying to take a step back. We're trying to look at everything and trying to understand it. Right now, I would say we need SROs in every school. We think there's a value to them in the high school and in the middle schools. If they were only there for the purposes of identifying kids who might be a problem, we wouldn't need police officers. You could use psychologists for that. So there's a reason why there are police officers with guns in the school. And they're trained police officers. I don't think we should have SLEOs. I think we should only have trained police officers in the schools. I echo what Mrs. Bowie said about the after-school activities. I am a volunteer in the school. I am a Girl Scout leader. And I would have no idea what to do in school if something were to happen. I said that to Mr. Dulks the morning after the Tamaulipas incident. And my co-leader and I believe that we're safe now because of what's been instituted at Tamaulipas, but that's until 5 o'clock. After 5 o'clock, there's no policy that I know of. So I just ask you to please look at the after-school policies. Please look at the SROs. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Drew Kellerman. I live at 858 Dorian Road. I have two children that have, one is a recent graduate, she graduated in June, and the other one is in college. Both my children have gone through the Westfield school systems. I have a few points to make. The first is that it's interesting that the point about the SROs being recommended for every school is from a 2015 study. That's a pretty old study. Studies since then have shown that SROs there are many, many downsides to having SROs in schools. SROs in schools have been shown to be ineffective. SROs in schools have been shown to be detrimental to students of color. They result in more arrests. Many incidents that normally would be resolved within the school result in arrests. So it's the rate of arrests have gone up in schools with SROs. So it's not always a wonderful thing. Also, I think there's a misunderstanding about the role of SROs in schools. SROs are not armed guards that stand at the entrances of schools. SROs are people who are supposed to be interacting with students. The SRO in the high school is not standing, I think Colin referred to this, is not standing by the entryway guarding the school. His office happens to be on the other side of the school. So as far as a protector of the school, that SRO is not standing guard at the school. And the SRO's role is to interact with students, not to stand guard and protect the school. Then another point about the SRO program is that where's all this money coming from? It's going to be millions of dollars to staff all of the elementary schools. So when we talk about SROs in every elementary school, I think that the school board, which by the way, thank you guys for all the work that you do and all the work that you've done on this, in this matter of safety. I commend you, and I think that you guys have done a tremendous job. I'm in wholehearted agreement with the measures that you guys have taken on this. Anyway, back to the SROs. So the SRO program is to extend it to the elementary schools is going to cost well over $1 million. And where is this money coming from? Are we happy? Are we going to eliminate the sports programs? Are we eliminating music, drama? Like we're running on a very, very tight, underfunded budget to begin with. So what are we going to be content eliminating here? Because the money is not coming out of nowhere. I think that the Dr. Dolan and the school board would be very hard pressed to come up with $1 million out of thin air. So what are we giving up here, guys? Because we're giving up something.
This is a bigger conversation.
It's a very big conversation.
Hold on, it's not a dialogue, please, thank you.
It's a very big conversation. So that's something to consider is where's the money coming from? I don't think sports teams are going to be willing to give up their teams. I don't think drama is going to be so quick. I don't think we're willing to go back to art on a court. $1 million is a big thing to give up. We're not going to have 30 student classes. It's going to be a challenge.
Just the murmuring, it's hard for us to, I want to hear everybody. We really do.
Thank you.
We want to hear everybody, so it's hard when there's murmuring in the audience not to hear what's going on. It's
And having armed guards in schools, I think in practice, while it's going to make us feel, I mean, and I get it, like we want our kids to feel safe in schools. Every single parent wants that feeling that their kid is safe in school. But there was an armed guard in Parkland, there was an armed guard in Columbine. It didn't save anyone. It's something that's going to make us feel good. We've got an armed guard. It's not, it hasn't.
Wait, guys.
You got to say your piece. Now
Yes,
I'm going to say
you got
my
to
piece.
speak, and nobody interrupted you, so I really appreciate it. If she has a different opinion than yours, that's also allowed here. So please
And
let
there's
her
plenty of
speak and
parents that
finish.
feel the way I feel. Thank you. So while it helps us to feel good about the safety of our kids, in practice, armed guards aren't saving anyone. It's just not happening. And then the other thing is that having more guidance counselors, there was a statistic, it was somewhere in the 90s, I don't remember the exact number, but it was somewhere in the 90s percent of school shootings come from within the school. So it's not outsiders that are doing this. So our money would be better spent adding guidance counselors and adding people that are going to identify troubled students that are doing these shootings. So that's something to consider. Rather than hiring an armed guard, let's hire somebody that's going to identify the students that are in trouble, and that we can identify these students and solve the problem before it begins. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. People of color, I see many of them around.
Just your name and address, please.
I'm sorry. I'm Dr. Sushmita Srivastav. I live in 10 Floral Court in Westfield. I have two kids. One of them goes through the system here. She's a second grader at Tamarquas, and we lived through the Tamarquas nightmare. So I would like to point out two things. Regarding the SRO, what I don't understand as an elementary school parent, how is it that it's okay to have the SROs for the high schoolers and the middle schoolers and not for the elementary school, which I don't understand. To the same tune, I would say, how do you finance it? I'm sure we can find ways. We are smart people. We can find a way of doing that. It doesn't have to come from the Board of Education. What about we collaborate with the police? Well, what about we collaborate with other sources? Have we ever explored the option rather than just saying that, what are we going to cut in school programs? We're not asking for that. We're not asking for that. Also, we're not asking for if this or that situation. We're not asking you to not have counselors. We want to identify these kids who need help. We want to identify and bring forward a better solution than just, one thing. I think the solution is not single. It's probably a multitude of things together. So that were my points. Thank you.
Hi, Tina Baker. I live on Alden Avenue. God, this is such a heated, difficult topic. Thank you for all you guys for listening to us, and thank you for keeping us safe. I feel grateful to live in New Jersey. We have great police in Westfield. We have a good community that pays attention to the kids, and we have really strong gun laws in the state. I think all those things help. But again, we are still not safe, and 80% of the crimes with guns come from out of state, regardless of how many laws we pass in New Jersey, which are effective and work and give our police officers ways to arrest people, like the man that was sitting outside of Tamarquas. I got involved with this issue 6 years ago when my son was the same age as the kids that were massacred at Sandy Hook. I had been noticing shooting after shooting, like the rest of us in the news, was really upset and said, I'm done, what am I doing? I went to the next grassroots group, I found Moms Demand Action, I got involved. They worked very hard to not become political. I didn't join it for that reason. I joined it because I didn't like the fact that my kids were doing these lockdown drills, and it they were talking to me at night before they went to bed about it too. So I was seeing the tension, and I knew that's not the way I grew up. I listened to everyone here tonight, and I have a lot of empathy that we're all feeling panicked, and we're going to do the best, and there are some measures we can take, but I can't help but stand back and think, this incident happened that we're referring to after school, and all the things that are being suggested tonight would have not stopped it. A resource, no matter how many armed guards you have, I just don't see how that would have stopped that after school. We're not going to have guards all over the building. We're not going to have guards after school. So I think we have to, look at this realistically in terms of, what is actually going to work and what's going to help, or are we just giving ourselves false security, and are we panicking? So that's what I try and look at. Since I have been involved in this issue, like Marcy said, we do a lot of reading on this issue, and I have seen no evidence of a school shooting being stopped because of a resource officer. Westfield is enormous. We have a resource officer, okay? Putting a resource officer, we know what they do. They walk around, at one entrance, and look at what happened in the schools with resource officers. The kids are smart. One of the kids pulled a fire alarm, and the kids were in the hallway when the shooter got in there. There's also the idea that we also live in a society now with this proliferation of assault weapons. So if an armed guard is on one side of the building, if it takes them 30 seconds to get to the other side, 30 people could be dead. Okay, that's just the reality. So the police are out armed by these weapons. I've spoken to trauma surgeons. The majority of the weapons on the street now illegally are semi-automatic weapons that fire massive amounts of ammunition. They don't see single gunshot wounds in the ER when they do operating anymore. They see multiple gunshot wounds. Okay, this is the new norm that we're dealing with. And I heard everybody say, let's not get political. This is a political issue. I'm not afraid to talk about it. So it is a political issue, and this is an access issue to firearms. Most of the shooters in high schools, like Drew said, are from within the school or recent graduates. So prevention is probably the best direction right now, in my opinion. Marcy mentioned the Sandy Hook Promise, and the whole program is really geared towards prevention. And those were moms and dads that experienced this in their school. And this was after all the research and data that's out there that they got involved. These were the solutions they came up with. And there's several training programs that this offers. I suggested to the school, and I actually called this week, to start getting that into motion. Hopefully the school will strongly consider adopting that. It includes a hotline, a tip hotline for the kids if they know someone that's making threats or there are warning signs that they can report it anonymously. So there are, I really think prevention, to try and say something when there's warning signs, like the red flag laws that just were implemented in New Jersey. I don't know if anyone's familiar with them, but that's a new law that's something that we can use. But I'm not against resource officers. I'm for anything that's going to keep my kids. I have 2 kids at the high school, and I think about this every day because I read these. I got alerts before I came here about another kid that was shot. So they're coming in all the time, and there's police officers everywhere, and they're still happening. So, I'm weary about spending millions of dollars on something to give us a false sense of security. But worse than that, I'm worried about the effect that it is having on children, because they are, in my opinion, noticing guns in areas that they don't normally see guns, like school. So I do believe that that's not the answer. That's my opinion. So thank you.
I just want to, I appreciate what everybody's saying, and I hope you you all believe me in that, but we really do want to keep it at about a 3 to 4 minute time frame because there are a lot of people who have things that want to say, and I want to give them all the opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm Cheryl Altman. I live on South Wickham Drive. I have a 9th grader at the high school, and I have a recent graduate. Thank you to all of you for all of your hard work. I know how much this means to everyone that comes here, regardless of the opinion that you've suggested and that you've stated. I agree with the comments stated of people that are not comfortable with bringing more guns into the schools. I remember the first time a few years ago when we brought the first resource officer to Westfield High School, how upsetting that was and what a big deal it is. And it's interesting how the climate has changed in just a few years and how quickly we got used to the idea of bringing officers into our school. It was just a few years ago, and it's upsetting how our climate has changed where officers are a regular appearance in our school. So I'm one who's not comfortable with having more guns in the school. The research shows that more guns are not the answer, that guns, in fact, as people have stated, in fact, are dangerous to have, that they are responsible for. They have been responsible for some of the school shootings. I would ask again that the board looks at the Sandy Hook research. I know this has been said over and over, so I'm not going to waste your time. And that mental health measures, again, are more useful, that the connections between the school staff are one of the best measures, that's the best resource, that's the best use of our money here, that's going to be the best protection we have for our students. And no matter what we do, I'm going to ask that you consider the effect that all these changes have on our students. I don't know that it's been thought of enough, but I know my student and a lot of the children are so upset, and they don't really, they can't really verbalize the changes and the living in this kind of environment. How, I don't think. Hopefully, I hope that they're safe, but something that we can't really express is how the effect of living like this with officers, I hope their physical safety is safe, but living where under the threat of the drills and living where it seems like they're in prison instead of school. You don't have to roll your eyes, but if you talk to the students and they talk about the reality of their lives, and it's not it's not the reality of the shooting, but just living the way they do. That's very upsetting. So I'd ask that you also consider the effect of living like that, how that's affecting our students. Thank you, Jim.
Hi, my name's Nitin Sapru. I live at 413 Clifton Street. I have a daughter at Tamaqua. I just have 2 points that I want to make. First of all, I'm a parent that supports the idea of a resource officer in the schools. And one thing that I don't understand is this is a debate about resource officers versus not resource officers. But in reality, this district has resource officers, just not at all of its schools. And the schools that it decides that it's going to not provide resource officers with are the ones with the most vulnerable population, right? The youngest kids, the most at risk, and unable to do anything to defend or help themselves whatsoever. So I don't understand why, money has been brought up here as one of the reasons of a constraint to having resource officers. You've allocated resources, you've allocated money towards resource officers, just not to the most vulnerable of the population here. My second point was just, sorry, I lost my train of thought here. So, I mean, I just really support resource officers. I'd like to see them in our school district. I feel like all the kids in Westfield deserve them, not just some of the kids. Thank you.
Hello. Not wearing heels. Julie Steinberg, 109 Belmar Terrace.
I want to start by, as others have, by thanking everybody on the board, Dr. Dolan and our Chief of Police. I've worked with all of you independently, and I've also come to these meetings, and I will continue to have faith and confidence, not just because you are elected and appointed officials, but because my own personal experience with this particular group of elected and appointed officials has been extremely positive. And I thank you for that, because I know not all people, and certainly not all towns, have that kind of confidence. And I'm grateful to live in Westfield where I do. A couple of things I just wanted to raise. One thing I would ask the board and Dr. Dolan for you to look at, and I know, Chief, this is an issue that you've looked at, is the issue of children with special needs. No matter what is implemented, that needs to be looked at very specifically, and not just through this special education lens. It has to do with how everybody interacts with children, whatever their needs are, whether they're physical, emotional, educational, intellectual. It doesn't matter, social, physical, medical. What's happening now, I think, is that sometimes is a very narrow group of people who get that specific training. Everybody who has to implement these measures needs training about kids with special needs. The kid that wanders in the middle of an active shooting drill by accident, the teacher that doesn't know whether or not they can open the door to get them, or whether or not they need to stay to protect the other students. That's a heartbreaking potential decision, and it is very possible and more likely when the child needs additional direction or instruction. In those circumstances, there's probably assistive technology and other things as well that can be taken into consideration. I ask you to please look at that and communicate, because it's helpful to we the parents. I have 2 children in the district, one new here to the high school, so this meeting is helpful for me not only because it's more comfortable than the BOE room, but I got an advanced tour for back to school in a few weeks, and one who just started in middle school. I echo Tina's sentiments and Cheryl's sentiments. It is a very frightening time on so many different levels, and not just in Westfield, but the question is what we as a town are going to do about it and how we are going to respond to it, and whether or not we will come together or the fear will be divisive. So I'd like to just talk about due diligence in that context. As somebody who's spent a good part of her career doing due diligence, I am very aware of how important it is, how things need to be researched, investigated, validated, looked at closely. Reasonable comparisons need to be made, and the consequences are, if it's not done, in my world, the bad guy would get away, the bad deal would be done, problems would arise. It's not that different here, because the due diligence that needs to get done here, and needs to get done properly by people who actually have expertise and not just a computer, is critical. And I think a lot of times due diligence gets thrown around as if it's actually been done, and it hasn't been. I do share and echo several people's concerns about the communication of said due diligence. I think that perhaps that's something we could all work on, and I think that due diligence in terms of how conclusions were reached and the research that was used, et cetera, I do think that kind of transparency would probably be useful, through various communications mechanisms. But I've heard a couple of things. One person brought up the 2015 report being constantly cited. It is dated. And honestly, it doesn't mean, in the same point, the content of the statement that just because what happened at Tamaulipas happened, it doesn't mean per se that what we had was deficient. It means that times are changing so rapidly, so painfully, so differently, and the question is whether or not we're going to respond, which is how it would work in an audit. It's how it would work in any sort of reasonable gap analysis. When things change and we have quickly responded, you do that. Another false type of due diligence I keep hearing is constant references to other towns, such as Clark, Cranford, Mountainside. These are our friends and our neighbors. They are important to us on a lot of levels, but they are not tantamount districts to Westfield. They are not the same size. They do not have as dense a population, student or total population. they do not have nearly the number of schools in a single district. We are not talking about comparisons, but I see these comparisons constantly made as due diligence, and it's not. It's information that perhaps is known, but if we're going to look, we should be looking, and I expect that the due diligence that the board and Dr. Dolan is supervising is looking not only at neighboring close towns that may have a solution, but comparable municipal entities and boards of education that are going through the same sorts of processes and pains and making concerted, educated, thoughtful decisions and then communicating them to our community. I would also mention that that the SRO issue has also been a bit of a challenging one to navigate. I do think that a lot of people seem to think it means one thing when in fact we've implemented it very differently here. And finally, I would say that I've worked with Chief Bataloro offline in a completely different context. And I really do rely on and am grateful for the leadership he's provided to our town, not only in a holistic context, but in the context for the very reason that we're here tonight. I've met with him on completely different matters, and I have found him to be somebody worth listening to, a good choice that was made for a community. And so I would include that in the due diligence, and I appreciate that the board brought him in tonight to reiterate that, and I think we should be taking it very seriously when he gives an assessment of where we are. If there are other credible types of due diligence, not just internet research, not just fundraising, not just organization, but real research that tells us that these are the right things to do, then let's bring it to the board and let's hear it and let's discuss it as a community. The people who live here, let's talk about that. The parents who are here, who do worry. And I think that is something that we all do. Every single person in here is shaking because everybody cares about the kids that they know in these schools, whether it's your children, your friends, the people who work there every day. I think that we should go back to that. I think we should be looking at a common set of information and instead of trying to outdo each other, and rely on the people that can give us valuable information. And so I ask that we start again, that we come back to a baseline in part through the information that is provided through these types of forums and through the experts and the other experts that you've engaged, and discuss that reasonably and as a community. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen Barletta. I live on 801 Clark Street. I have a kindergartner. And I want to thank, first of all of you. I know you do this on a volunteer basis, and it's incredible the work that you're doing and that you're listening to all of us. Police Chief, thank you so much for what you're doing. And I'm so impressed by the student who came here today. I'm laughing that Julie came right before me because her message is my message. One big takeaway, I'm hearing there are different sides of the argument, and I'm hearing a lot of good things. And I come from a business background, and I was thinking we really need what, in my view, would be a competitive analysis, but maybe in this venue we call it a comparative analysis, where we do look at, like Julie said, similar towns, but then we also look at the towns that have been devastated by these atrocities, like Sandy Hook, like Parkland, like Columbine, and step back and look at this and breathe, and in a transparent manner, so that we can kind of look at what's worked and what hasn't worked. I agree. Quickly agree, but of course I want to look at the studies too on things like no voting in schools or have the schools shut down when voting occurs. I need to learn more about SROs and read more about it. External improvement, same thing. I feel uneducated, and I would just like to learn more about it through studies that we can look at collectively as parents and come and speak with you about from someone trusted. I mean, this is what the town is doing and looking at how to get Westfield, how to build business in Westfield. They're looking at similar towns. They're looking at Summit. They're looking at Cranford and what they've done, and stepping back and doing a long-term study. I don't want it to be long-term because I want the solutions quickly, but we need to step back and breathe and think how we can do this together.
Good evening.
My name is Joshua Hecker. I live on Tamaqua Way. My son was in the school at the time that the man was arrested. So thank you, Chief. Thank you, Westfield Police Department. It was very upsetting for me to get the call. My son was there. We had to pick him up after in the back by the playground. So I know firsthand how scary it is because he was there. And I commend the board and the Westfield Police Department for taking the measures that they took over the summer, looking at this issue. I'm screaming into the microphone maybe. I don't need to do that. And I support the measures that they took, making sure that the doors were locked after hours, changing the procedure, and though that being said, while I'm glad that they took those measures, I'm not so much afraid of this happening again. Maybe that's naive, but statistically, I don't really think it is. What I'm more afraid of is losing the school environment for our kids. And I am afraid that while certain things are helpful, like locking the doors, and maybe vestibules. I hadn't heard of that proposal before. I'd be open to listening to what that is and the specifics of how that would be implemented. And I'd like to know more about it. And as far as the SROs, I don't know a lot about that, but I do have concerns about that as well, because I do have concerns as to what their role would be in an elementary school. I'm not speaking to a high school or the middle school. I don't know their role there, but I do have concerns for what the role of an SRO would be in the elementary school. So, while some security measures are necessary, I don't think we need multiple security levels or levels of security. I don't think we need to scare the children unnecessarily. And I don't believe we build trust with the students by slowly having the students believe more and more that their school is unsafe and that it's a dangerous place to be, because each level of security we add on top of another is another burden on them and an invasion of their person. And I don't want to live in that sort of environment either. Again, that being said, I'm open to certain suggestions, how to improve the security of the perimeter of the school. Vestibule sounds like could be a great solution. I don't know the specifics, but I'm not in favor of armed guards in the elementary schools or armed officers in the elementary schools and various other security possibilities, but I don't hear a lot of those being mentioned tonight, so I don't really believe that those are an issue. Thank you.
My name's Kyle George. I live at 605 Short Hills Court. I'd like to thank the school board for the opportunity to speak and to the Westfield PD for their swift action to neutralize that single threat and what they do on a day-to-day basis. One of the main reasons I moved my family to Westfield was its high-quality school system. And our experience so far has been nothing but amazing at Lincoln, where my oldest daughter goes. I believe a gentleman earlier called it a bubble, and that we live in a bubble here, and call it that if you will, but let's not be so quick to change that. Let's see if we can retain that. I'm all for common sense security measures like checking of IDs of visitors and background checks for employees, and enforcing vigilance on existing policies and protocols. I think a lot of the things that were reiterated at the start of the school year were things that were basically common sense and had been in place before, requiring parents to have visitor badges or any visitor to the school. Makes a lot of sense, seems pretty lightweight, doesn't seem like it causes a lot of emotional strife for anyone involved. I don't have a fully formed opinion on school resource officers. I grew up in a different part of the country where guns were not such a big deal. It's different up here. I would like just to I would actually think it's more of an issue is some of the other things that go on. For example, the lockdown drills. I'd like to pause and consider for a second that lockdown drills are this generation's nuclear fallout drills. They basically have no actual security utility. If you're in a, just like if you were, it provides a false sense of security. Very much like if you're, if you recall from the 50s and the nuclear scare, when we were in the Cold War, people thought that hiding under their desks were going to protect them from nuclear bombs, and that's clearly was creating a sense of, it's security theater, if you will, not actual security. We must resist just the temptation to have a disproportional reaction and to turn our schools into prison-like facilities. Do we want the next generation of citizens able to function in society, or do we want our children to be conditioned to act like inmates confined by fear? All I ask is that you don't think all I ask is that you think for a moment about the liberty you're sacrificing for a tiny, tiny modicum of feeling of security, and that remember that everyone has a choice whether or not to give in to fear. Thanks.
Good evening, Greg Casco, 434 Everson Place. A little bit about my background. I'm a product of the school system. Both my daughters are a product of the school system. My one daughter graduated from college this past year, and she's now a teacher in a neighboring town. She came home from her training a week and a half, 2 weeks ago before school started, and she said, "Dad, we had an officer in our training and told us that not one child that was behind a locked door in a classroom during school active shooters died. It was the teacher or another school employee that opened a locked door and let a student in that allowed an active shooter to enter a classroom and do their damage." The school resource officers program started in the 1950s in Flint, Michigan. And back then, the purpose of that program was for officers to be placed in schools on a full-time basis as teachers and counselors. That hasn't changed much today. And I want to read something that I found as I was sitting here tonight listening to each and every one of you. NASRO, which is the National Association of School Resource Officers, considers it a best practice to use a triad concept to define the three main roles of school resource officers: educator, informal counselor, mentor, and law enforcement officer. I think nowadays we look at an officer in a school more like a security guard. That's not the role of a school resource officer. If you go back to the original reasoning or purpose of police in schools. I'm a retired police officer from the Westfield Police Department. I'm a former DARE officer. I spent time in each elementary school and middle school teaching students the DARE program before it was eliminated in Westfield. And I can honestly tell you that that was a role I filled as a school resource officer, educator, mentor. If I was on the second floor of Franklin School and an active shooter incident occurred on the first floor of the kindergarten wing at the time, I wasn't going to be able to stop that until I got there. Most of your school shootings have been stopped because either the perpetrator killed themselves or they gave up long after they've done their damage. I'm a gun owner. I haven't carried my gun in 12 years since I retired. It's locked at home in a safe. It's got a trigger guard on it. When I was a police officer, my wife was taught how to take that gun apart. God forbid something happened. My children were taught gun safety because, as a father, I wanted to make sure that they knew that it was something that was in the house they didn't have to be afraid of, but I took the steps to lock it up each and every time in a safe with a trigger guard. I don't think the answer is a school resource officer in every elementary school. I understand the parents here that are asking for that. I agree with you 100%. Perception, though, is a lot. And I think what you're looking for is more of a security guard that's focusing on that person that's looking to enter the school and attack your children. But what's to stop a kid in this cafeteria that's already in school while that security guard or school resource officer is in the gym, mentoring, teaching kids? It's inevitable. It's going to happen. I think that this Board of Education is doing a fine job in looking into what we need to do as a community or as a Board of Education to increase the safety of our students in school at a cost that we can afford. And I know some people might say, well, you're putting a cost on my kid's head. That's the way it works in this world. I pay taxes in this town. I've never complained once about the taxes I pay. My parents moved here because of the school system. I raised my children here because of the school system. And it's because the school board, the teachers, the administrators, the superintendent are looking out for the best interest of our kids. And that's why I put my trust in this board to make the right decision for our children. I don't think school security guards is the answer. School resource officers, remember the definition. They're more teachers and mentors than they are actual security guards. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Joan Weiss. I live at 1140 Central Avenue. I'm a retired teacher from New York City, and I'm a grandma of 2 children in the Westfield schools. I have one in Lincoln and one in Tamaulipas in the 2nd grade. I am very much in favor of some kind of armed officer in the elementary schools, and I think the reason, and tell me if I'm wrong, that we have it in the high school and the junior highs is that those are the kids who are expected to come into school with guns or issues, and nobody expects an elementary school student to come in, which is most likely true. Therefore, the actual fear in the elementary schools is an outsider coming in. Consequently, we need some kind of protection in there. Let's say that an armed person got in to the elementary school. What do they do about it? Who's going to eliminate this person? To call the police department? That's going to take a while. If you had an SRO or some form of security guard in the school, they'd be there in 1 minute. And the question is, why don't the elementary schools have this protection? And it's funny, listening to all of you, and I believe I'm probably the only grandmother who is talking here today, the sense of urgency from the current parents of elementary schools is so different from listening to the rest of you who have children who either graduated from here or are in the high school or whatever. It's a whole new ballgame. And I think it's the parents and grandparents of the elementary school people who really need to be listened to here, because we are the ones who have that horrible feeling when we drop off our children that where is the safety in this school? Now, I go to a lot of drop-offs and a lot of pickups in both Lincoln and Tamaqua. I can tell you I feel okay at Lincoln. Why? Because there's one little door in the front where everybody goes in. The principal and 2 teachers are standing there every morning, and it's a narrow door. Nobody's going to get past that. But when you look at Tamaqua, the door where everybody comes in is huge. It's a double door. Actually, it's a quadruple door. And it's chaotic. I really think we need right now, before we even discuss getting an SRO or discuss getting a double door, we need to have some solutions immediately now to protect these elementary school kids. I mean, at the least, I believe that cameras were installed in Tamaqua the day after the gunman incident. And I know that because I met the people who were installing it just by chance when I walked at the school. Okay? Who's watching the cameras at Tamaqua or anywhere else? Is there somebody who sits and watches the screen of who goes in or out or who's in the building? I don't know the answer to that. We have certain things that we could do immediately, at least before we go through this whole debate of SROs or no SROs or double doors. Why don't we have something called pull tab alarms? Most churches and synagogues have those in every single corridor. A pull tab alarm. A teacher sees or hears something, runs to this thing, pulls the alarm, it goes directly to the police station. I don't believe we have those in any of the schools. We need to narrow the doorways on drop-off and pickup. I see mass chaos, and I think that's just a very, very, very big issue. We need better phone service. I know in Tamaqua there are areas of the school where phones don't work. I mean, that's preposterous to security. We also should have bulletproof glass on the ground floor windows. We have shatterproof glass, but what's that? It's not going to prevent a bullet from going through. This is reality. These are the times we live in now. I taught for a long, long time in New York City, and I can tell you every single protocol is being taken care of there. Why don't we have that here?
Mehta from 609 Shore Hills Court. I wasn't prepared to speak this evening, but first, thank you to all of you, to Chief, and to our department. I don't know if every elementary school in Westfield has uniform safety with the locked doors, video cameras. I have a 4th grader at Franklin. I have a 6th grader at Roosevelt. We are relatively new still to Westfield. And everything that we moved here for, our family, my husband and I are still very, very comfortable with what we have seen. I do work, but I am also a very active member of our community, especially our Franklin PTO. I am there sometimes early in the morning, I am there sometimes during the day and after school. I do recognize that we have—
Could you just stand closer to the mic? Thank you.
I do recognize that we have after-school activities. We just had Franklin Movie Night. It was on our grass top. It's an open field. It was amazing. I was happy to see that we had so much community spirit again. A lot of people came. We're right on Prospect. I mean, things happen all of the time, but they're not random incidents. I'm not going to detail statistics, but they're not most of the time random incidents. I would hate to see, things will then trickle down to, we have things all over the town on weekends. We have big open fields. We have plays. We have variety shows. We have scouts. We have so many things. But what is the suggestion? That we live in fear because we as parents or volunteers, as adults, are not trained? Our children will be seeing that. I'm not saying that there is a solution. I'm not aware of one. I don't know one. I've not researched enough to know one. But I would hate to see this taken away, or parents having fear and that trickling down to children, be it high school age or elementary age. I respect what our student representative said today. I also implore all of you to realize that there is just as much anxiety on another child, be it a high school age child or an elementary child, when they see SROs or they see police officers, or if they see cars with the lights on, the sirens are not on, but they were there the first day of school. They were right in our Franklin on our blacktop. So for children that were entering first grade, that is what they saw, okay? Yes, our officers are Franklin. I see them in the daytime, and they are friendly. Our children are very much aware of them. They do not fear them, but in the same right, there is a group of children who do fear them. There are children who have PTSD. They have families that they may have experienced stuff. I work in the city. I can say that when my bus is stuck in the tunnel, I panic for a minute. No matter what, I can't rid of that panic, but that panic is there and it is real. I also know my children this summer were on the subway in the city with my husband, and a fight broke out, and there was a threat of a gun. Was there a real gun in that person's purse? I do not know. But I spoke to my children about it, and it was interesting to hear my 9.5-year-old tell me that, yes, you know, he and his sister were scared, but when we spoke about guns in school as a protective measure, he still said to me that he feels safe in school. The lockdown drills, hiding in the closet, going to the bathroom because our first grade classrooms still have bathrooms in the classroom. He still feels safe the way it is. Obviously, things can happen, but they're not random incidents for the majority of the time. I know that I don't have a child at Tamaulipas. That does not mean by any means that as a community, as a whole, we should care about each other, okay? I understand people are saying this is not political. This is most definitely becoming political. Let's not kid ourselves, okay? We have local elections this year. We have a national election next year. I implore everybody to just keep in mind that no matter where your child is, if you no longer have a child in our system, it does not matter. You live in our town, we live in this town, we pay taxes in this town, we are a community. You are going to help one another if you see somebody in distress. Please keep that in mind. The notion that my child does not go to Tamaulipas does not matter, okay? They will all cross paths in high school at some point or another. I have a neighbor. They are relatively new neighbors to me. They have 2 little girls. They asked me last week about my experience in kindergarten here. My children, when we moved, we did not go to Lincoln for certain reasons. And so my children, my 2 kids just followed one another. But I was told that the first day of school at Lincoln was very different apparently than what it has been. Parents weren't able to greet the teachers. One parent apparently was allowed in Lincoln, and then they had to trade off. This all because of security. Their young daughter would have loved to have both parents with her, meet their teacher, and I think that would have been really nice for the parents to also be able to have, this is my teacher's name, this is the face of my teacher. I don't know if this is because security, but that's something that I was told, and that's something that we should hopefully think about, because as much as this is as I truly feel that I'm grateful for a stepwise solution or stepwise implementation of security measures happening, I don't think that we should have a knee-jerk, anxiety-filled solution. We all go to work, we all walk around town, we all live our daily lives. Why do our children need to live with, even though the officers are their friends, why do they have to live going to school with seeing so much around them? They're still young. They are still very innocent, no matter what the age is. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Sapru. I live at 413 Clifton Street. My daughter goes to Tamaulipas now. She's in 2nd grade, and we weren't there that day, but had driven by to see the aftermath. And I just want to say a few things tonight that I fully support an SRO in the elementary schools. I don't understand why the middle school and high school has them. And if it is about funding, I think there's ways that we can work around, like somebody else already said, that we are all very intelligent people here. And I think there can be a solution. In addition to an SRO, I feel strongly there should be a security guard to alleviate some of the pressure off of the office staff and the principals during the times where the doors are open at pickup and drop off. On our first day of school back this year, I was shocked that there was nothing additional done since last year. We had gathered in the back of the school at Tamaulipas. The doors were wide open. The teachers were greeting parents. That's fine. There should be somebody additional on top of that whose main job is to guard the open door during drop-off and pickup times, as well as letting visitors into the building, and can conduct security sweeps throughout the day like the custodians are currently doing. I also think that a police sweep at the end of the day is a great idea after the school is closed, to alleviate the pressure off of the custodians. I also feel like we should get more opinions from other agencies like the Office of Emergency Management. And lastly, I think that we can be more transparent about what you are doing. Tonight, as I sit here, we're all voicing our opinions and you guys haven't said anything. So I don't know, it's to save time or back and forth, but I think that there can be a discussion. Cranford's hosting a security meeting next week with the police department, fire department, the school officials, Cranford, the OEM from Cranford. And I just want to say a quote that I read in the flyer about that. It says, "Safety is a shared responsibility. The district and our public safety partners rely on stakeholder input to help inform safety and security measures for our schools." So I'd like for you, thank you for listening to us. And I think there should be something set up for an open dialogue where we can also hear from you about what you're doing and what your thought process is and how you make decisions about these things. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eileen Carroll. I live at 721 Clark Street. I have 2 children at Franklin. I'll make it short and sweet. I'm also a teacher in Roselle Park. Just get the teachers involved, if you can, as well. Ask them. They're in the classrooms every day. We're in and out of the classrooms. We're in and out of the buildings. Most of us, obviously. Protect the children every single day. We know what's going on in the buildings. If you could get Westfield teachers involved as well. I've heard a lot about police. I've heard a lot about board. I've heard a lot about principals, secretaries, nothing about the teachers. We're there, we're doing the lockdown drills, we're with the kids, we know what they're saying, we know about the security in the schools. If you could get in every building, a couple of teachers and ask them what's going on. They're on the forefront. As much as you talk about you guys and the principals and the secretaries and the cops, teachers in the classrooms are the ones that are there seeing everything. So if you could get us involved.
Hi everybody, Liz Mulholland, Westfield, New Jersey. I am a former veteran teacher who worked in an inner city school. We had security guards there. We had a security guard. I've been in education for over 30 years. I attend state legislative hearings at both the Senate, Assembly, and budget hearings. I also attend State Board of Education hearings. I am very interested in policy, and therefore I read all policies within the district, state, and federal government because that impacts my children. I greatly care about education. It is the #1 focus. It is our future. This is how our children are going to learn to live and survive in the country that we live in. So it is very important to me and always has been. I want to thank the school board, the superintendent, the business administrator, and anybody else who I didn't mention because they every day are focused solely on our children's education. And that sounds like a small thing, right? Children's education. That includes 800 staff, over 6,000 students, 10 different schools, some that are probably 80 years old, leaking toilets, leaking roofs, systems that are falling apart, gyms that have floors where there's asbestos or whatever other toxins they have. And you know what? There's special needs children, there's general ed students, there's gifted students, there's kids who are going to college, there's guidance counselors. Do you realize that the students in our schools the guidance counselor in our schools have 200 students per guidance counselor? Think about that. If we're talking about really solving this problem, the problem is from within. The problem is coming from mental health. What our children need is somebody that is going to help them at a younger age, somebody who's going to identify the stressors. These things are happening in the school by the people within the environment. Every one of these things that I've heard recommended, from bulletproof glass, I have yet to hear about a gunman standing outside a window shooting into a classroom. I haven't heard it. And the cost is astronomical. I mean, we are talking $7, $10, $20 million to do that. Do you realize that in Washington School there are close to 200 windows? This is not a small expense. We really seriously have to understand that education is more than just one thing. I understand that we're scared. I understand. I see what's going on. I also see that our teachers, our guidance counselors, our principals, everybody in there is just as scared and just as thoughtful about everything that we're concerned about. And what I find when I see a lot of these recommendations is a lot of misunderstanding about what's really happening. And I will tell you, I have been attending monthly meetings in this district for well over 7 years. We have these conversations. This security is not a new conversation. It goes on every year, and there are deep discussions, and it's not just in a vacuum. We sit in a room. There are anywhere from 25 to 50 or 60 parents sometimes that are sitting in a room having these discussions. What do you want to see? This is what we're presenting. Does anyone have a conversation on it? Those meetings happen every single month. There are school board meetings that go on every single month. The information and the questions you seek to these answers, what our security protocols are, I know them. I know them like the back of my hand. And most of the things you're asking for are already here. Our doors already lock. They already lock. Every door in this school locks. You're talking about panic button. You want pull tabs. All right, let's talk about pull tabs. Here's the reality of pull tabs, and this worries me. This is what drives me crazy. You have a pull tab. Let's be realistic about what's really happening in our schools. You have 2 guys come in with guns. The one guy hits the pull tab. He's locked the doors. This room, this lunchroom, is 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It is filled. And guess where his partner is? Guess what's happened? They're stuck in a locked door. And if you have bulletproof windows, the windows don't open. Now you've trapped them in this room. You see, those are the things that take due diligence and take a lot of thinking. Those are the conditions that we seriously have to think of. Now, I understand that we're all nervous, but I do think that a lot of education has to be put in this. A lot of thought has to go into this. This is not small, what you're talking about. We already have, you want to do electronic systems, the only thing that an electronic system will tell you is the history if somebody was a sexual offender. I don't know what the correlation of that is with school shooters. All of our teachers are already fingerprinted. Anybody that has anything to do with our children, they're fingerprinted. So some of this stuff is already known. And it's unfortunate to me, and I feel like there's a disconnect. But for somebody like me who is here all the time, reading all the policies, I sit here a little bit saddened that people don't know, and it's so easy to find out. It really is. And I'm really sorry that there is this miscommunication and misunderstanding. I I also wanted to talk about education again as a whole, and I'm sorry I'm going on, but this is really important. Education is to educate our children. Yes, we have to provide a safe environment, and this district does a great job at that. But our education dollars should not and cannot be used for after-school programs that are not through the district. We cannot be funding after-school things that we're talking about private companies that we're already lending them our property, and now you're going to use my educational funding. You're going to cut teachers, increase class. Where is the limit on this? Because I'm looking at this, and I've done the research. We're talking about anywhere from, I don't know, I want to say about, if we were to do this whole list, probably $15 to $30 million, depending on what you're asking to do. You talk about vestibules. Do you know that most school shootings don't come in the front door? They don't come in. I said most. You want to talk about one? We can talk about one. I can make a million one-offs. And you can continue to make fun of me, and you can continue to come back with the snarky answers. There are most of the schools do not come through the front door. So we have to figure out to ourselves, what's the percentage and chances of this happening? And where is our money best spent to protect our children and give them the great education that this district always has? And I really do commend everybody, parents, teachers, everybody, for caring this much about our kids. I think it's very important. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry I went on so long. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Black. I live at 238 Delaware Street. I wasn't sure I was going to say anything tonight. I really wanted to come and listen to, obviously, a multitude of opinions in the room. And I respect the opinions of everyone who got up tonight to speak. I thank the school board for listening to us and for giving us this opportunity to voice our opinions. Most of all, I thank Chief Badaloro for everything he's done within our community. We are so happy to have you as the chief, and we have a great deal of trust in you. We've heard a lot of different opinions, strong feelings. I came here tonight with the belief in we need some added layer of protection for our elementary school students. Security resource officers sound like a good idea to me, but maybe there is a better idea. Maybe there is something else we could look at doing. Pull tabs, that sounds like a no-brainer in terms of security, but I respect Ms. Mulholland's, what you just said, I think is a very valid point, and I think that that is something that we should look at. So what I'm really trying to say is, I think what we could all benefit from is more of an open dialogue, more of a communication where there's an open exchange of ideas. Granted, you cannot tell us everything that's in the works in terms of security measures, and that's understandable. But I think as parents and members of the community, we need to have a better understanding of what we're thinking about, what could be done, what's a good idea, what's not a good idea, and have a little bit more of a dialogue so that I think we have a little bit more peace of mind. And we're not always going to agree. That's not possible. But I think as a community, we really need to come together and come to some type of consensus in the interest of the security and safety of our children, of our teachers. My husband is a teacher, and I worry about him too. Personally, I believe that the secretaries do an outstanding job, but I do not believe that the onus of security should be on the secretaries. That is something that I came here believing, and I have not been, my mind has not been changed on that point. And that's basically it. But I do ask that there be some type of committee, or I don't know exactly what the forum would be, where there is some type of dialogue, where we can exchange ideas. And yes, again, we won't always agree, but maybe we have a better understanding of each other's perspectives, and we then can grow and evolve in our security protocol from there. Thank you.
Seeing nobody come forth to the podium, I'm going to, Dr. Dolan, do you have a couple of words that you'd like to close before I have just a couple of words? I'm sorry.
Since honestly, there are just, as a few people said, so many different thoughts and opinions, and I don't think there's a way to succinctly answer all of those at the same point. Some things that can be done immediately. There is information addressing some of the topics that some people mentioned here today that already exists. Some of it's on the website. Some of it maybe should be on the website, and that we can, I think, pull together rather quickly and make sure that everybody has it. We have, over the years, shared information with the community, but if you're a parent of a younger child, you're not going to know that, right? So I think that might be some of the disconnect. Maybe we heard tonight we have some people whose children have been in the district and they have been hearing gradually over the years what has been done. But if you're just sending us your oldest child or your children are all young, well, you don't really know that yet, right? And so maybe that's a good first step to try to get some of the answers to some of the things that were raised, and some things where it's assumed we're not doing certain things, but we are, and some explanations of why we are where we are for now. In addition, I hope you could see we were paying attention, we were listening. Will we consider other things? Yes, we always do. Do we take the suggestions of all experts? Certainly Westfield Police, as I mentioned, but certainly the county offices, certainly the state offices. We take advice from the people who are experts. Although we have been studying this and attending sessions and inviting people into our buildings and having people do audits, even though we do all that, we understand we are not the experts in security. We learn more and more every year. Our teachers learn more and more every year. Our principals learn more and more every year. But the experts are out there, and they are very good at sharing information with people in schools, and we all take that very seriously. But again, if you're new to us, if your children are new to us, you don't have all that history. So let's see if we can put some of that together so that some of this can make more sense, and then we will continue to work on it and consider the suggestions, and I'm sure the board members will have their own thoughts as well.
First, I'd like to thank everybody. Everybody thanked us, and I thank all of you. I thank Westfield for being a passionate community where we care about not only our students, but we care about our town. We care about the structure of our town, the things that are going on. And I thank you for all of that, because that's what makes Westfield special. Just as an aside, maybe we can break the ice here a little bit. I too grew up in Cranford and live in Westfield. Both great communities. My mother passed away out of Cranford just 5 years ago, so I had a tie to West Cranford at that point in time. That's my breaking of the ice. It seems like so many people were Westfield, Cranford, Westfield, Cranford. It's a great community. We're a great community. At the beginning, I said that there were going to be multiple opinions, and I think Sarah brought that up. There were a lot of opinions here, and we don't all agree. And we need to respect other people's opinions and be willing to listen. And I think that that's what our school board does very well. We do listen. We do our due diligence. I mean, I want to stress that very, very strongly. There is nobody sitting at this table, whether or not it be the volunteers or the administrative staff, who doesn't do their due diligence. Dr. Dolan, her staff, teachers, and so forth, they go for training. They ask. I believe that in the past, I mean, somebody mentioned Mr. Gambino, if I had his name correct. He has been in our district. He has done an audit on our system. So we do our due diligence. I want to give you some comfort to know that these people do their due diligence. They ask questions. They look at best practices, and they bring back the best things that have been presented to us, to Westfield, that we can enact in our district. So please, feel confident that due diligence is being done in this district. The other thing is, yes, maybe we need to, we're always working on communication. One of the things I've learned here is that we do say a lot. The websites say a lot. We need people to listen to. People asked us about things that have been added to the district for security reasons and say we don't have them, but at the August 27th meeting, I'm pretty sure Dana discussed some of the things that people said, I don't even know that we have. We need people to listen, and if we're not getting the message out correctly to you, we're willing to change. We talk about it quite often. How do we get the message out to the community to let you know what we're doing? We have these meetings, and I have to say, I sit here, and a lot of people come and they say what they want to say, and then they leave. So they don't always hear the message that we're saying. They're not hearing the whole story. So, but I'm open, and I think the board is open, to open those lines of communication. If there's a way that you want us to communicate with us, please, give us a call, let us know. This is an ongoing discussion, right? What we needed 3 years ago for security isn't what we need today, nor is it going to be what we're going to need 3 years from now. And believe me, we continue to work on it every day, every month. We make changes, we make investments in our students, and yes, we work in a budget and so forth, but we are continuing to work on it. So I will come back to our committee, our group of board members, and see whether or not we can come up with possibly a subcommittee. Maybe it's better on a school-wide basis. I'm not sure this is the right forum, because we might be here for 3 days if we had an open dialogue. Maybe it's better on a smaller basis, on a school level, and then a school level comes back to us with some of their conclusions and so forth. So we hear you, and I hope you hear us and you listen, and you get the information that we put out there. And the safety of the students and staff are very important to us. So does anybody else have any? So once again, thank you. And if I find where we are on the agenda, we'll move forward. Yes. Okay, somebody may have to go to the bathroom up here. So we'll take a 2-minute break and we'll come back and we'll start back up with Dr. Dolan's superintendent's report on college placement. Okay, I'm going to turn over the meeting to Dr. Dolan to do her report on college placement and career readiness.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, this is a presentation I enjoy doing, so I'm talking about the Westfield High School class of 2019. Graduation day, a lot of us remember that. It was June 21st, 2019. We had 442 seniors who received their diplomas. We had another 4 students who had to complete some summer work in order to receive their diplomas, but they did. And then we have 3 students who are continuing in transition programs for their life after graduation. And according to state and federal law, they don't count as having graduated because they're still in a program. Okay, they're continuing their work. So that translates into 99.3% of our seniors graduated last year, and we certainly are very happy with that. That's very important, and we and the parents certainly work with students to make sure that they realize the importance of the graduation and that we support them in their efforts to get to graduation. Out of all of the graduates from 2019, we have 94% of those students are continuing their education. The other 6% break down as 5% of the students have not reported their future plans, 0.8% have joined the military, and 0.2% are moving out of the country and continuing their education there. And out of the 2019 class from Westfield High School, 88% are attending 4-year colleges and/or universities. 5.6% are starting with 2-year colleges, and 0.4% are attending other types of career education post-high school. And of the students who are attending college or university, I'm glad to say they go to the class of 2019, 148 different colleges and universities. You know, it's so easy to think that there's only one place for a child, and students sometimes, get a little bit too focused and think that there's only one way to success. There are so many wonderful colleges and universities that will match the needs of any child. So 148 colleges are being attended now in 33 different states and 2 out of country. The next slide shows you a list of the most popular universities. You'll note a number of them are pretty nearby, which makes sense, and there are other ones that are in different parts of the country. These tend to, some of them tend to be on that list from year to year, and there are other ones that tend to surprise us from year to year. But again, there are a number of great universities and colleges. And often parents ask us about Ivy League representation, and so we had students who were accepted to all of those schools. So we're very proud of the class of 2019. They're busy at work on their first semester in college and university, or their first few months in the military, or in whatever they're pursuing, and we certainly wish them the best, and we look forward to them coming back to visit us.
Thank you, Dr. Dolan. Oh, forgot the microphone. Thank you, Dr. Dolan. I'd like the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on August 27, 2019. Second. All in favor? Aye. A second from Rob. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Personnel, Amy.
I would like to...
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, we're not used to sharing. I would like the board to consider personnel items 1 through 34. Can I have a second?
Second.
Oh, Ken got there first. Thank you. Dr. Dolan, I believe there's an item or two.
That is correct.
Okay.
Tonight, I am announcing with regret the retirements of 3 staff members whose service to Westfield students totals over 70 years. Lucy Arbus will retire in June as a secretary at Tamaqua School, but her professional roots in Westfield can be traced back to supporting special needs students as a paraprofessional 25 years ago. In everything she does, Lucy makes a dedicated effort to make students, teachers, and parents feel supported and welcome. What has been memorable for Lucy is the opportunity to watch students grow and succeed. Mary Dura's commitment to young learners is well known at Wilson School, where she has been a primary teacher and remarkable role model for her colleagues for over 20 years. Her depth of literacy expertise allowed her to find exactly the right way to help each first-grade student become a proud reader. Mary's own love of books and her excitement about learning are contagious motivators which kept her students engaged and challenged. In her retirement letter, she wrote, "Not every gift comes in a box. I am grateful for the joy that I have received in abundance from all my students." And last, but certainly not least, Mike Morris will be retiring at the end of December after a stellar 25-year career in the district. First as a custodian, then as a member of the maintenance and groundskeeping crew, and for the past 14 years he has served as the supervisor of buildings and grounds. It is not an exaggeration to say that Mike has supervised the improvement of every building and field in this district during his time as a supervisor. Mike is a dedicated and loyal employee, and we certainly wish him well, and we will certainly miss him as well.
I just wanted to also express my gratitude for Mrs. Dora, my head Mrs. Dora, and she is just one of the most fantastic people you will ever meet. All you need to do is meet her once, and even for a brief period of time, and you will never forget her. And so it's sad that future generations will not have Mrs. Dora, but I'm sure there'll be other Mrs. Doras that come along. But she was, can't say enough and thank her enough, and I wish her the best. Thank you.
And I think you can say that about a lot of our retirees. You know, we're starting early this year. Usually is a second half of the season. Whenever somebody leaves the Westfield School District, we're losing something. But being at the opening day with our new professionals, the new staff that we've hired, there are new traditions starting, new teachers, new wonderful educators that our kids will have. But we will definitely miss the 3 people that were mentioned this evening. Any other questions in reference to personnel?
With regard to number 24, superintendent goals, is the timing off on that this year, or is it normally a September goal, or a September agenda item?
Right, they're supposed to be submitted by September 30th to the county superintendent for his approval.
The one question I just had is we received these district goals this past Friday and have never seen them before, and we really never had a discussion as a board about them on see what they're covering, but we've never had a discussion to discuss whether we agree with them, whether there should be any tweaks to them, or whether it's in the direction that we've heard a lot of comments come from residents this evening, whether they're aligning with their comments. And when I look at, like, for example, one of the superintendent's goals is increasing likes on Facebook and Twitter by 200 likes. Well, I'm not really sure how that, from a district perspective, yes, we're getting some more likes on our Facebook site, but what's that measuring as far as success? And I'm just not clear on that. And when I reviewed it over the weekend, I just didn't necessarily feel that was enough of a goal for our district to just have, we're looking at Facebook likes when we have a number of other issues that we should be looking to concern ourselves with.
Right, so every year the goals are based on both the strategic plan, but also the feedback that the board gives me at the end of the year. And honestly, the one you referenced came from feedback saying that that area needed to be improved, so that's why it was included. And then I would just also offer that I did send the suggested goals once in June, just as broad topics. And then in August, it was sent again to board members and asking for feedback, because you're right, your feedback is important.
I just checked with a couple board members, and I could be wrong. Maybe I missed the email. I just don't remember ever receiving it. Maybe it was, but I just don't remember receiving it. And I checked with the board members, and they couldn't recall it as well. So that's really, when I saw these for the first time on Friday, that's where really the questions came up to me.
Yeah, it's certainly the first time there was a presentation sent, but the goals were sent twice over the course of the summer for the very reason you talk about, for the very reason because your input is important.
Okay.
And I do believe, if I'm mistaken, we usually discuss this at the end of the year, in the month of June, and I think we did a lot of discussion about security in June, and it's possible that some of us missed it due to that conversation. So if there's anybody here who's not comfortable voting on Dr. Dolan's goals or district goals, that is your prerogative. So put it out there. Are we voting?
Oh, yes, we need to vote on personnel items. Sorry, Dana. Michael Beeman.
Yes, but abstain from 24.
24, did you say?
Yes.
Ken Diamond?
Yes.
Brendan Galligan?
Yes.
Robert Garrison?
Yes.
Ryan Morrissey?
Yes, but abstain from 24.
Gretchen Oleg?
Yes, although I need to abstain from 13, please.
Tara Porto?
Yes.
Peggy Oster?
Yes.
Amy Ruth?
Yes.
Okay. Facilities, Gretchen.
So the facilities committee met recently on a Friday morning, September 6th, and we talked about a few things. First of all, we brainstormed a little bit more about some possible ideas for ways to honor Dr. Nelson from a facilities perspective, and we talked about the flag at the high school at Kaler and just some other places at the high school, but ultimately, it's, I'm going to,
I was going to say that.
So we gave some suggestions to Dana, and I know that Dana has also, and Dr. Dolan have received suggestions from the high school community and other people in the district. So those will be added to the list, and I'm sure we'll hear more on that coming forward. Dana also provided us with an update on summer projects. Everything is moving along swimmingly. I don't believe the doors, I think, and the foyers, there were some last minute things to finish up. And I'll let Dana speak to that in a minute. But the big sort of ribbon, do you have big scissors, Dr. Dolan, for Saturday? For the official opening of Kaler, although I know our students have been playing there and it's beautiful, but this Saturday will be the official opening at the football game, and so I invite community members who haven't had a chance to come see it yet, definitely take the opportunity. And then we did start a conversation about the vestibule renovations, and I think it quickly became apparent that first of all, it costs a lot of money, that there was a lot more conversation to be had before we were ready to make a full presentation to the public.
It is an ongoing conversation and one that I think that, you know, we want to find a way to wrap in some of the other board members on. So, and I think Dana shared some information with the board on that today with the initial drawings that we got from George. So Dana, maybe you could just give us an update on where the summer projects are.
So as you know, we had many major summer projects this year. Kayla, you already talked about, and that's just about 100% complete. Some punch list items are still being finished. We also installed generators at all of the schools. The generators are in. We are still in the process of installing the Volt servers, which are the digital electricity servers. So they are not yet finished, but they're in process. We did bathrooms in both of the middle schools, and then we also did a bathroom at the high school. Those are all pretty much finished. Still some little punch list items, but they're open and being used in all 3 schools, I believe. We did the lobbies over. We renovated the lobbies to make them look a little bit nicer to go with the auditoriums that we did last year. And those are pretty much also finished now. They were not 100% for the start of school, but they're finishing up right now, and they look great as well. The door project is a major project, and that's at this school as well as the 2 middle schools. They did change a significant number of doors in this building. They haven't changed. You can see here they've changed 2 and not 3. The doors that have not been changed are the ones that are going to be hooked up to the system. So what will happen in a room like this, those doors will both remain locked at all times, and this door will not. And if a lockdown is called, the system will automatically lock these doors. So all of the electronics part of that, the doors that have to be installed, they have to be wired with the electricity, and then they have to be hooked up to our system, our communication system. So that's a process that takes a long time. It's complicated. We've got several different contractors that have to work on that to make it work, and we're working after hours. So we're hoping to have that done by the end of October or thereabouts. That's also the security guards. I mean, gates, if you've walked down here, you probably can see them. They're all up, they're not down. They're mostly installed, but they're not working yet because they're not yet hooked up to the system. So we're finishing up all those projects. And that soon we'll be talking about the door projects at the elementary schools, which we'll be going out to bid probably in a couple months for next summer. McKinley, we are approving tonight a transfer out of capital reserve to award a contract to install the new floor. I still don't know. We're still going back and forth with the insurance company. We do expect to get some of that back from the insurance company, and when we do, we'll transfer that money back into capital reserve. But I don't want to wait for the insurance company money, so we'll issue a purchase order tomorrow, and we hope to have that done also by the end of October.
The next facilities committee meeting is October 4th, I think.
Great. Thank you, Gretchen. Long-range planning, Amy.
All this transferring of microphone for me to say I have no formal report, but we have a meeting on the schedule, on the calendar, for next Wednesday, September 25th at 5 p.m. for those of you that are on the committee meeting, and lots to talk about, obviously. So I look forward to having a more formal report at our next meeting.
Great. Thank you. Brendan, policies.
No formal action tonight. I'm going to turn the microphone back over to Dr. Dolan for the district goals presentation.
Thank you. Okay. Actually, a topic that we heard about tonight, and one that seems to be a perennial, is improving clear and timely communications with parents and other community stakeholders. So in an effort to continue to improve that, one thing we're going to do is I'm going to establish a newsletter that is sent out during the year to try to provide information to all parents, so that it actually goes out to them, because sometimes there seems to be a problem when we do make information available that people don't go to it. So we're going to try to summarize and send it to them.
Also, we are going to try to really promote the use of the website, because so much information that people don't know truly is on the website. So we're trying to get people into the habit of going there, and we're going to try to do that in a number of different ways. Also, because some people only access information on social media, that's why we were trying to increase traffic to that, so that they can get the real information and not what's being posted on some other source. And then also, somebody mentioned it tonight, the Parent-Teacher Council that meets every month, and I attend and a board representative attends, and it really is an opportunity for a dialogue. Parents are invited to go to that, and a number of parents from representing every school are there. It really is a good opportunity for discussion and for both sides learning. So we're going to try to encourage more people to attend that as well, because that really is a great forum. Again, it's every month, and you have a great mix of parents who attend that meeting. The second goal has to do with providing increased awareness of security and safety. So some of it is the work that was done prior to the start of the year, so all parents would be aware of changes, because they really were significant changes. That seems to have gone so far to date. We do have a crisis communication plan online. We're going to improve that and maybe include some one-page visuals, which really may help parents, because it's a different type of language, and maybe that's what we think will help parents understand things a little bit better and make them more aware of what we're doing to keep children safe. We've already started. We did make the parents aware of the crisis communication plan that has been on the website by including it in the September parent packet, and we're going to also publish it in PTO newsletters and social media, any other way we can get that information out to parents, because the more they understand what already is in place regarding this, I think the better it will be. And then obviously continue the training of security protocols with our staff. That is ongoing, that is not new, but in a way it is new because the guidance changes based on what has happened recently. And the third goal, we've really worked hard on figuring out how to implement full-day kindergarten, and it is also, that's another challenge, to communicate that clearly to parents. It's a rather, as we've discussed at a number of public meetings, that's a difficult thing to explain. At this point, we would still have to do a bond referendum first, and then at a later point, have a separate vote on the budget. So we are trying to find out ways to really make sure people are aware of the facts, and then they'll be able to make their own decisions as to what's the best way to progress. As a little tangent to that last one, I attended the convocation that is held by the Commissioner of Education in New Jersey. I attended that yesterday, and when they asked for questions of the Commissioner after his presentation, I was the first one up there, reminding him that as great as it is that preschool money is being offered to public school districts, there are still some districts who are trying to implement full-day kindergarten, and could there please be some consideration of that we can't even consider pre-K until we have full-day kindergarten.
As an aside, what did he say?
Yeah. As an aside, he said that yes, that they understand that there are problems, and that there are problems. Yes, there was not a promise, but there was. It was very polite.
Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but you asked a great question. I wanted to know if he had a great answer.
He didn't write a check.
He did not. So, thank you very much, Dr. Dolan. I think the three district goals are three things that we brought forward to Dr. Dolan at the end of last year. One is always a conversation about communication. And I'm not always sure communication is that we didn't say something, it's that people didn't hear us or they weren't listening. So we continue to work on getting this information out in different methods, using different platforms that different people use. So they have the information, so they can hear us, they can listen to us. Also, we have to think about for us listening to them. I think that's a great goal. We definitely know that we've worked very hard on security in our district, and I have said it over and over, I appreciate all the work that you've done. And yes, the community brought to us the question about full-day kindergarten. we are one of few districts in New Jersey that don't offer it. So we're trying to figure out how we can put it into place in our district. So thank you very much for that. So, and we're not voting, right? Are we voting?
Nope.
No. Okay.
So that's it for policies.
Right.
We're meeting next Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Curriculum goes back.
I would like the board to consider curriculum items 1 and 2. Can I have a second? Rob? Thanks. Sorry, got to Rob first. Just one same-day field trip is item number 1. Item number 2 is 2 student intern candidates for the school year. We are not voting on items we discussed at our very first curriculum meeting last Thursday. Those are ongoing discussion items that we'll continue to talk about in October, and we may bring them forth at a future meeting. I did circulate notes this afternoon. Sorry, kind of late. I didn't mean to wait until the last minute. But again, the 2 items that we're looking at tonight on the agenda are the field trip and the student interns. And our next meeting is October 24th. So after that, we'll know more. And can we vote on the 2 items for curriculum tonight?
Michael Beelan.
Yes.
Kent Diamond.
Yes.
Brenda Galligan.
Yes.
Robert Garrison.
Yes.
Brian Morrissey.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Tara Porto.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Thank you, Amy. Finance. I'd like the board to consider items 1 through 15. Ken, thank you. Any questions? No? I'd like to call out item number 9. We are accepting a gift from the Get Better Basketball Camp, run by Mr. and Mrs. James Lane, to be used as follows: $300 to help fund any social emotional resources at Roosevelt Intermediate School, and $300 to help fund any social emotional resources at Edison Intermediate School. So thank you very much for your support. Dana?
Mike Beelan.
Yes.
Kent Diamond.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Robert Garrison.
Yes.
Brian Morrissey.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Tara Porto.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Michael, technology.
Yes, I had an email discussion with Paul Panero and Brian Walker, and we have our meeting scheduled for the 20th, in which we're going to review the summer technology projects, and we're planning our 2019-2020 agendas for throughout the year. So we'll have an update next month.
Great, thank you. I'd like the board to consider the notes for the record. Can I have a second? Or do we just consider?
You don't need to
Right,
consider it.
right, okay.
Just think about it. Just think about it. Just noting.
It's been a long night, I apologize. Do we have any unfinished business? Do we have any new business? Do we have any liaison reports?
Sorry. Not to drag on, but yes, 2 liaison reports. One, the Franklin PTO Executive Board met last week. Great feedback, Dr. Dolan, from both Dr. Cambria and from the board members that were present about understanding and appreciating the new security measures at the school. So far, feedback there has been good and noteworthy, so just wanted to pass that along. As someone spoke earlier tonight, they had their movie night last Friday. Great success, lots of fun. Getting good feedback also about their new playground equipment that was purchased by the PTO, so that's going very well. And just an early plug for their pumpkin fair on Saturday, October 19th. A perennial favorite in the Franklin community, but open to the public. Great community event to be considered by anyone who has some time on that Saturday. It's 10 to 3, I think, that day at Franklin School. And just a quick plug for the town's green team, which has been active over the summer. I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but I've been following along. They're putting some of their items out on social media too. The group gathered to clean up plastic toys at the Conservation Center so they could be repurposed and put back out into other communities, which I think is great. There was a backpack drive at the beginning of school to help collect items and the backpacks themselves for less fortunate communities. And there's also currently a medallion program underway downtown among the area stores to encourage the shop owners to consider more sustainable options and reducing single-use plastics. So take a look in store windows as you head downtown, and if that's something that you support, definitely, give a high five to the shop owners, because it's a great initiative. So that's it. Thanks.
I met with the Thomas PTO. We had our meeting last week. The Tamacos PTO had their meeting last Thursday. First off, they were happy to hear we're hiring the first grade part-time teacher to help with the classrooms. We spent a good chunk of time talking about the security issues. I mentioned a lot of the things that Dr. Dillon and Dana mentioned at our August meeting, and they were thrilled with the things like the panic button and other things that we're doing. Their suggestion was maybe just communicate more things that we are doing, but overall they seemed pretty comfortable and happy with what we have been doing. And that's about it.
And just a plug for the town, I'm on the committee for Westfield 300. For anybody who doesn't know, Westfield was settled. Oh, yeah. Settled in 1720. So next year we will be celebrating our settlement for 300 years, and the town is putting together hopefully a whole year-long bunch of activities for the town. So it just started. We had our first meeting. Watch for updates coming in the future. I will ask one more time. I will recognize the public for questions or comments if anybody else wanted to come forward. Seeing nobody come to the podium. I would like the board to approve the following resolution. Resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purpose of discussing matters rendered confidential by state and federal law, legal and personnel matters, and be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential, and the results of the discussion will be made public as soon as practicable. So I have a second. Kent.
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?